There are currently 59 different weapons inside Modern Warfare and Warzone to choose from, and this video is going to rank each of the guns so you know which one you should use for your loadout. The last time we made a video like this was over 3 months ago and so much has changed since then, so this is why we wanted to make another video breaking down each weapon and telling you where it places inside the meta. If you want to watch more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. First we have the 1911 pistol, and I do not recommend many of the pistols in this game. They're not useful at all, and especially inside Warzone when you have ground loot options, I'd recommend going for those instead. The 357 I'd only recommend as average if you use it as the akimbo snake shot pistols. Then we have the Deagle. Again, this is not that good. Using the akimbo is even worse in my opinion. Next we have the 587 shotgun. I can't even remember what the shotgun is called, but again, terrible shotgun, wouldn't recommend it at all. The AK-47 I think is actually quite a good gun depending on the loadout you use it for and the specific scenario. I mean, most assault rifles will go in the good or average category anyways, just because they're kind of versatile overall. But I think the AK-47 with the correct attachments can actually be quite a good weapon. Next we have the Cr56 Amex, which again is very similar to the AK-47 but better in every single way. Most people use this as the meta gun inside Warzone at the moment, and there's a reason for it with such a low time to kill. After that we have the AN94, and again I would put this in average. It's not one of the better assault rifles inside Warzone. Here is definitely usable if you pick it up as ground loot, but other than that I wouldn't recommend it in a loadout. Next we have the AS Val. Now this is one of the lowest time to kill, if not the lowest time to kill, fully automatic guns inside Warzone entirely. Now if you equip this as an SMG with the correct attachments, this can shred through enemies much quicker than any MP5. Fully automatic, this is the quickest time to kill you can get in the entire game, which is a great option especially as a secondary. The only issue with the AS Val is that it uses the same ammo as your primary weapon, so if you're running an AR with the AS Val, you're going to be sharing the same ammo. Next we have the AUG. Now I think this is an average gun as well. Even if you use it with a 5.56 rounds, it is good and very usable of course, but I don't think it's much better than a lot of the other SMGs inside Warzone. Maybe this is between average and good, but like I said, I would have it in average for the reasons I just mentioned. The AX50 is still a good weapon inside Warzone. There's not a lot wrong with it, it's just that a lot of the other snipers do everything the AX50 can do, but better. However, it still performs really well, and I don't see why people shouldn't be using it because it's still a great sniper rifle. I still think it's a good weapon if you have the correct attachments. There just are better snipers now in the game. Next we have the Bison, and again this is average. I would say if it's ground loot you should definitely pick it up. It will get you some kills of course. However, the high TTK just makes it not very useful inside Warzone, and especially at close range when people are camping in buildings or hiding in corners. You want to be able to kill enemies very quickly so you can move on to the next one, and the Bison won't allow you to do that. However, it does have a good benefit of a large magazine as the base weapon. Next we have the Brune, and I still believe the Brune is a really good gun to use still in Warzone. If you use the meta loadout from before, it still does really well. It just involves a little bit more skill now. The combat knife, the Kodachis and the Kali sticks all are very similar, and the only time you should be using them is if either you're doing a challenge of some sort, or if you want to actually die, or if it's just a really specific scenario. But like I said, it's not going to win you any games using any of these unless you have it as a secondary weapon just for fun. Next we have the crossbow, and similar to the knives, it's a very specific case where the crossbow can be useful, but for the most part not a lot of people are going to be using this, and therefore I don't recommend it. The Dragunov sniper rifle is one of the worst sniper rifles in the game, and like I said, I wouldn't use this gun. There's even marksman rifles that perform better, so there's no reason to use this. Next we have the EBR, and this is another gun I would not recommend using. The time to kill is really bad, and the fact that it's only got a 2-hit headshot potential just makes it really useless, especially inside Warzone, whereas If you're landing a headshot, you want the reward of killing an enemy straight away. Next we have the FAL, and the FAL is still a good weapon. It's very usable, especially at close range as well. And even at those longer ranges, it performs well too. The FAL is something that stands out, slightly different to the rest as it's semi-automatic. However, it still can be very useful, even though it's not as overpowered as it once was. Next we have the FAMAS, and this is a gun, again, I highly recommend not using because it's very specific, and on top of that, it just doesn't perform well at closer ranges. So you're not getting the maximum potential of taking an assault rifle with the FAMAS, so I wouldn't recommend it at all. Next up we have the Fennec, and the Fennec is an average SMG. It does have a low time to kill, which is in its favour, but compared to some of the others in this game, and the fact that it runs out of bullets in the magazine really quickly due to the high fire rate as well, makes it unusable in some cases. Maybe inside solos this would be higher up on the list. The Finn LMG everyone thought was going to be overpowered when it released, and it's something again I'd have to put in the average category. It is usable of course. The only benefit to it is that it does have quite a large magazine and a low recoil if you do not use the adverse barrel attachments. So if you're someone that struggles to control recoil, this is definitely a gun for you. Next we have the Grau, and again I think the Grau's still a great weapon to use. It's obviously not the best gun in the game anymore of course. It still has one of the lower recoil patterns also compared to some of the other assault rifles. Even though it has been nerfed, it's still quite controllable compared to the others. Next up we have the HDR, and we all know the HDR has been one of the best sniper rifles since the launch of the game. It shoots the furthest, it has the highest bullet velocity, and therefore it's one of the best guns inside Warzone, especially if you enjoy sniping. This is the gun you should be using. Next up is the Holger, and this is definitely just an average gun. It's not the best, you can pick up as ground loot and do well with it. Next we have the ISO, and again this is average. I'd put that in line with the Fennec. Next we have the Jak-12. Now the Jak-12 is a really good shotgun inside Warzone. The real issue with the Jak-12 is that it's really slow in terms of movement, especially when you add the drum mags. But other than that, this is a fantastic gun and a lot of people should be using it. Next we have the Joker, and I wouldn't recommend the Joker in most cases, but it does have a particular use case that I find very useful, which is clearing the top of buildings. I see a lot of people using the Joker to clear enemies off of camping off of rooftops, and that is the only benefit of having the Joker as a gun. Next up we have the Cr58. Now this has got to be one of the best marksman rifles inside Warzone, and there's a reason why everyone uses it, and it's because it's got such a fast aim down sight time, and you also have that one hit headshot potential. Next up we have the Kilo, and everyone knows this is the best assault rifle inside Warzone at the moment. Nothing else really competes too much with the Kilo because it has a really good recoil pattern that's easy to manage. Next up we have the M13, and I've really been enjoying using the M13, and that is because it has a really low recoil pattern, and for players who do not like to manage a heavy recoil pattern, this is a very good gun to use. It's very similar to the Kilo in that aspect. The recoil patterns are different of course to the Kilo, but if you like to have low recoil weapons, the M13 is definitely a great option. It doesn't have the time to kill potential as an AMAX or a Kilo, but it's definitely a really good option if you want to land all your shots. Next is the M9. Like I said, pistols are an I don't use. Whilst I'm doing that, I would also put the starting pistol, the X60 or whatever it's called, inside the bottom of the list as well. Don't use that either. Can't remember what it's called, but that's where it should go. The only other pistol that is on this list is the Akimbo Renettis, and again, similar to the Akimbo shotgun pistols, this should go on average. This is the only two pistols you should use. Next up we have the M4, and of course this is a meta weapon as well. The M4 has been one of the best guns in the game since launch. It has a good balance between recoil pattern as well as TTK, and therefore it kind of sits between the AMAX and the Kilo for me, and that's why I think the M4 is a great weapon to use. Next up we have the M91. As ground loot, this is very usable, and it's just an average gun. I wouldn't recommend it in a loadout compared to some of the other guns in this game. The MG34 I would not recommend that much, but again this is average. In the correct hands it can be useful, especially as ground loot once more. Next up we have the Mark II Carbine, and this is a gun I really love using. It's just a hit marker machine, and I feel like it has so much potential. If the damage was buffed slightly on it, a lot more people would use it. But I would have to put it in the don't use category because honestly, it just gets complete hit markers every time you shoot this gun. The model shotgun, again, is not something I recommend using. I don't think it's one of the better shotguns in the game. Next, we have the best SMG in the game, and that is the MP5. This can be built in a few different ways and performs well in every different way you use it, which is great, especially at close range. The MP5 is the only SMG you should be using, maybe other than the ASVAL, but do we really count that as an SMG? I'm not really too sure. But like I said, SMG, using the actual SMG ammo, especially in Warzone, MP5 at close range is the way to go. And its only other competitor is the MP7, but I feel like the MP7 is a meta weapon for different reasons to the MP5. It performs better at medium ranges than the MP5 does, and it has a lower recoil pattern, and it is a fantastic gun as well, and they're both good for different reasons. Next we have the Odin, and this is again an average gun. I don't think it's as good as even the AK-47 in my opinion. If it even had a skill gap, you'd see a lot more skilled players using it, but you don't see that either. Most people would opt to go for the AMAX anyway. Next up we have the Origin 12. Now at close range with the Dragon Breath rounds, this is still pretty good. Even though it has got a nerf, it's still very usable, so I don't see why a lot of people have stopped using it. But like I said, there is better shotguns in the game as well, and that's the R90. This has got to be the best shotgun inside Warzone, especially with the Dragon Breath rounds. The time to kill is so low and you only need to 2-tap enemies. You could pretty much clear out entire squads with the R90 shotgun with Dragon Breath rounds, and that's why it is one of the meta guns inside Warzone at the moment. The P90 is a gun that I really still enjoy using. I feel like it's very usable, especially with the correct class setup, and it doesn't hit as hard as the MP5 or maybe the MP7 or some of the other SMGs in the game, but it has a really low recoil, and that's what makes it quite easy to control, especially for newer players. Next we have the Pila. Again, with the other launchers, I don't really recommend it much, and whilst I'm at it, I'll also put the Strela in there too, along with the RPG. I think the RPG is more usable than the rest of them. In more cases, it's the most versatile option. Next up we have the PKM. The PKM is an amazing LMG inside Warzone, probably one of the best LMGs in Warzone, if not the best. And equipped correctly, it can be very usable. The only downside to an LMG, and that's why it's not meta of course, is that mobility aspect with your movement. And that's why a lot of people don't use the PKM, but I feel like if it had like a 60 round mag option like the Bruin did, this would be an amazing LMG to use. The Ram 7 is a really great assault rifle and can be on par with something like the M4. It's just that a lot of people don't like the leftward shooting recoil pattern that it has. And other than that, it's very similar to the M4 in many different ways. It has a fast fire rate, a low time to kill. It actually beats the M4 in some different ways as well. So at closer ranges, the Ram 7 actually kills quicker. And that's why I really do like this gun. It's just the recoil makes it very hard to use. Also the fact that it does not have a 60 round mag option, I feel like that's also putting this gun back as well, whereas the M4 and a lot of the other assault rifles do have this option as well. The riot shield is something I'm actually going to put into average. I feel like it can be quite useful in some scenarios if you are a camping type player, if you're pushing buildings and there's multiple enemies, if you're kind of out in the open. The riot shield can be quite useful in different ways actually, and that's why I put it in average and do not use. The Rytec is a terrible sniper rifle. I don't really want to get into why this sniper rifle is bad, but it's just bad in many different ways. The SA87 is the next gun, and I think a lot of people sleep on this. I think it's a pretty good gun. I think the aim down sight time is pretty slow, but if you equip this correctly, it's very similar to the AMAX, and actually at longer ranges, this actually kills quicker than the AMAX, so this actually has the lowest time to kill at those longer ranges than any other full auto gun inside Warzone. And this is why I think a lot of people are sleeping on this gun. But I think with the correct attachments, and if it just had a slight bit less recoil, it would be pretty much one of the best guns inside Warzone. Next we have the Scar. The Scar actually has a really high damage profile. I need to put it in average just because of the fact that it has small mags. And if it had a larger mag option, this could be higher up on the list. The SKS, again, I would put in average. It's probably the best marksman rifle that's inside the game. So if you want to actually try out a semi-automatic marksman rifle, the SKS is probably the best option. So like I said, the SPR208 is a meta gun inside Warzone. It's probably the best marksman rifle in the game. I technically think it's a sniper rifle more or less, but like I said, it fires faster than a lot of the other snipers in the game, and that's why I put it higher up on the list. Next we have the Striker. Now this is one of the SMGs I actually would not recommend using whatsoever. It's just not good in any scenario, and even the ground loot options are not very good either. The Uzi is an average gun. I think the Uzi can be used in a few different cases. It's not the better of the SMGs, but I do feel like it's on par with the P90. Lastly, the Vlk Rogue is average. I think it is one of the better shotguns, especially comparing it to the model and the rest of them that are in the don't use section. I think the Vlk Rogue is more usable than those, but it's definitely not better than the R90 shotgun, and is definitely not better than the Jak 12 either. So that has been my tier list for Warzone Season 6. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave us a like, as it helps us get recommended more. And if you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. And thank you very much for watching.